little by little, God was calling me already. So I turned my head again back to the 1 o'clock to where I'm looking, and the next shot I heard ripped through my throat. So I'm on the ground, my life's pouring out, and I hear this. John, get up or your wife is gonna die. It was easier to stay on the ground rather than get up and be resilient. I hear it again. John, get up or your wife is gonna die.
And then something rose up inside of me, and there was a flash of anger. And I said, God, if you are real, then explain to me, why in the world did you ever let me be born? And what happened next was a blinding light encounter. And I wish I do write. And even as a writer, I've never been able to find the exact words to explain what it was like. But that room was filled with a glow and a sparkling light that I've never seen before or since. And I felt the warmth that started at the top of my head and spread through my body. I encountered him and his spirit. It was an encounter that just enmeshed me in it. I was in it, and yet I could see it, and that's hard to explain. But he began to speak to me, and he began to say, I'm right here. I love you. I'm never going to leave you. I love you. He kept saying that. And then he gave me a vision of me being in his hand. And I was at the bottom of a very dark pit. And in his hand, as he began to move me up out of the pit, I saw scenes from my life, all the dark things that had happened. And in every scene, I could see he had been there.
Welcome to another episode of Life Transformed Podcast. I'm John Arroyo. Today, I have a really special guest. Now, I know that every guest is a special guest, but this one is the special guest. You guys are going to get to meet someone that actually knows who you are, because this person has been with me since day one. And I want to say, this is my mama. You guys are getting a glimpse behind, not just behind the veil, you guys are getting a glimpse behind my heart. So when I do life, this woman is a part of everything. She knows all the endeavors, everything that the Lord is doing in and through us. She knows what the Lord is doing in and through my wife and I, how we're doing life together. There's nothing that happens in my life without the counsel, the love, the prayers of this woman. And believe me, everybody needs a mama. Everybody needs a father. And this woman has been there with me, with Angel, since day one, her and her husband. And so let me introduce you to Peggy Corvin.
Hi, John. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to do life with you. So thank you.
Mom, we say this all the time. And I know, okay, so I gotta be careful because I know you as Mom, but the world knows you as Peggy Corvin.
Yes, that's true.
So,
true.
Peggy.
Yes.
We have been doing life together since 2018, 2019, when I got to Dave Reaver Ministries.
Yes.
And then I got to meet your wonderful husband, Stan Corvin Jr., who is a warrior, was a warrior, a soldier.
Absolutely.
And you guys heard my story, and he was just like,
100%.
we need to write, we need to help this kid, because I needed a lot of help during that time.
Yes.
There were people in our life that helped us, but you and Stan really came around Angel and I to help guide us. And there were times when we needed parents. There were times when we needed business advice. We needed counsel in marriage and family. And it was just like, whenever we would talk, I would say, all right, this is who I need to be talking to. And Pop would say, okay, I'm putting on my financial hats. All right, I'm putting on my Pop hat, And so
It's true.
Mom, I say this often to you, and the world has never heard me say it, but I'm going to say it right now. Mom, I don't ever want to do life without you.
Aw. I don't ever want to do life without you either. And it was a joy for my husband. When he first met you, he came home and told me, he said, I met a really special guy today. And so you came into his heart, and then God brought you into our lives. And it's been an honor to watch and to be a part of. He loved every minute of it.
Well, also look where we're at from where we started
Yes.
with loaves and fishes. Mom,
Wow.
we started with dreams.
Yes.
We started with just dreams.
Yes. Yes, we did some vision casting and began to catch a vision of what God was doing. First, it was just a book. We'll just write his story. We loved writing stories that glorify God. We wouldn't write any stories that didn't. And yours was very special in that. And that in of itself was wonderful. Think of all the people today that pick up that book that haven't read it before and get touched by what God did in your life. And that gives them hope for what God can do in theirs.
Yeah, and you've been co-author of all books.
It's been so fun.
You co-authored all the books. And so
fun.
whenever people are reading Attacked at Home, I never heard my dad say, get up, and the Devo. I mean, there's every bit of your life, every bit of freedom is in those books.
Yes.
And your voice goes out more than people know.
Well, and I actually got to do Angel's part of this story. That's why she's so precious to me in my heart, because we drew in, and really I just got a mama's love for her from the very beginning. And I'm very partial to her story being told from her heart. And so not only did I help her write her story for the book, but I got to do it on the Audible book as well. And so I got to tell her story, which has been a great honor. And then Get Up has a lot of her story in it as well. It's life from her view as well as life from yours.
Yeah, and then we went down the path of almost signing a contract with Sony Pictures, and then you and Pop became Mom and Papa Bears to us. Yes. And he walked
100%. 100%.
You guys protected us with that lawyer that we had, Deborah Johnson, that helped us from really signing something that would have not been good.
They didn't have the same vision for that story that God had given us. And so, of course, Stan, the warrior that you mentioned before, he was a great defender for me. He made sure I was safe no matter what. And he felt the same way about his kids, John and Angel. He was going to make sure that nobody messed with you guys.
So the world knows so much about my story. They've heard about our books, and they're really starting to get out there. Yes. But you have a compelling story, and you use it. You use it in everyday life. You use it in everyday ministry. It's really, I believe, what the Lord, how he's propelled you into bringing freedom into the world, into kneecap to kneecap, because there's a society out there that is wearing the wounds of a broken world, of a fallen world. And the Lord has used your story, has used your life, and has brought you out of some stuff. And now you're using that to bring men and women, and it's not just women, it's men and women.
Absolutely.
Into freedom. So before we get into your story, what is freedom?
Well, freedom that I'm talking about is spiritual freedom that transcends whatever circumstance you're in. We live in a free country, so we think I have the freedom to speak and a freedom for religion and all of those freedoms that we hold dear. But we can be walking in freedom in the worldly systems and be bound by what they put into our heart. So spiritual freedom is when we can come fully before God in an intimate relationship with him as the person that he created us to be. And knowing that we can interact with the rest of our world with kingdom principles and kingdom understanding.
also for me, like the language that I walk away with in freedom is that you don't have to live with that depression. You
That's
don't have to
exactly
live
right.
because there's a shadow, there's wounds, there's things inside
Yes.
that have happened because of instances or because of experiences that we've had. For me, what you walked me through in freedom, or what the Lord walked me through you as you walked me through freedom, is I didn't have my dad. I didn't have
That's
a
right.
father. And the Lord had you walk me through hearing his voice and showing me. And so when I think of freedom, I think of getting rid of those shadows. I think you call them. What
I do
talk
call them
shadows, Mom?
shadows. I talk shadows when we've been doing work because God lifted you up out of the darkness when you encountered Him, and you were you were ready. You went running after Him, and so what happened in your life was you had some shadows from the past that were hidden because it's the great deceiver that puts all of that in our soul. But a lot of times when I'm starting with someone, they are still in darkness. So what happens is God comes and He lifts us up out of the darkness. When we know how to talk with Him, when we know how to hear from Him, when we can just open ourselves up to Him, He's going to get us up out of that darkness. And you know what? The enemy of our soul hates that because he wants to keep us bound. Because he does. Look, you think the enemy wanted you going into ministry and doing what you're doing for the kingdom? Absolutely not. So he just tries to throw little tests out there, or tries to throw snares at us, or set traps for us that will lead us back into the old. And it's just like he did with Eve in the garden. Did God really say? And when we hear God say who we are, that's what the enemy wants to attack. Did God really say you could work in ministry? Those kinds of shadows. And so, and those are all still tied to our soul wounds that aren't quite healed yet. What I found is it's a process. We get deeper and deeper and get to the very, very root, and that's where we find complete freedom. But it takes a process to get there.
Wow. And there's a world that is needing freedom.
Absolutely.
And I know that you have a curriculum
I
getting
do
ready
have
to
a
come out.
curriculum.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I'm
good.
working on it now. God has used me for a couple of decades now to facilitate freedom for other people and in various situations and settings. But He has equipped me and anointed me to teach and to speak and to call out. As we talk about, it's not anything I can give people, it's calling it out and calling people up to walk in that freedom with Him. And it's been amazing. I have so many stories, some God sightings to tell. And what happens, though, in people's lives is it changes everything. And it's been absolutely exciting to be able to do that. I do freedom at Walmart. I do. I mean, I brought a man to tears in the middle of a furniture store not long ago just because he mentioned God. And I knew there was something in me that was calling his hurt forth. So I just kind of walked him over to a quiet part of the store and we did some freedom work. And he started crying, and I knew that his heart had been moved. But of course, I love having settings in a classroom or speaking to groups of people about freedom because I love to watch Holy Spirit move. And you can see countenances change, and you can see hope get reborn when people have just given up that they'll ever be able to change it. So I am a blessed woman in that for sure. And I'm bringing my curriculum forward based on all the things He's taught me to do. He walked me through freedom. He was the one. There were no church programs. I'd never heard of freedom ministry. And I found that later after He had set me free. And so my curriculum is based on Holy Spirit guidance, honestly. And every class is led by Holy Spirit. I just get to facilitate it. So the curriculum will be able to be used in classrooms. But, John, there's so much in my heart that I want to train other people. Don't you call that force multiplier?
That's right.
So I love that I can be a force for the Lord. But, oh, my goodness, I want to multiply the forces because, like you, I see so many that are hurting. And my ears are very sensitive to people's words and what they pronounce about themselves. And, you know, it's really hard for me to
It's
not
those labels,
stop.
right? Those lies and labels that
Absolutely.
come out of our mouths.
Absolutely. So my desire for the curriculum is it'll also be a tool for other people to take it and multiply forces in their lives as well.
Well, I think this is a perfect segue for you to open up and to tell us about the stolen past, because now we know that you're doing freedom. We know what's
Yes.
coming. We know the curriculum. We know that people are going to get set free from the bondages, from the pain, from the
Yes.
divorces, from the
Yes.
lies and the labels and the limitations and everything that the world has put on us because we lived in this fallen world. But you're not coming from a place of academia. You're not just saying, "Oh, I got this degree and let me just tell you because this is psychology." You're saying the very first freedom minister, who was Jesus Christ,
Yes.
walked you through the process that you are now taking people through. So let's start from the beginning
Okay.
and let's talk about the stolen past.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I was born into abject poverty. And I always use the phrase abject poverty, because we were definitely poor. We were itinerant farmers that followed the crops. We lived in an unpainted house on the edge of whatever field we were working. It was never our house. It belonged to someone else. There was no running water in that house. So you have to really visualize the poverty. It was a deep level of poverty. But the abject part was because there was no hope. There was so much darkness. I was abused every single way a child could be abused in the first 5 years of my life. And I didn't have any form of nurture at all. I don't even know how to describe the darkness, but I will tell you that as a child, I didn't ever see a world full of color. It was all gray because I didn't perceive anything that had light in it because I was surrounded and covered up by the darkness. People were just mean, very mean. There was a lot of abuse. I was put into the fields to work as a child. I remember as early as in my 3 and 4-year-old stage, part of what I did was crawl up under cotton plants or whatever the plant was and grab the cutworms and pull them out by hand and kill them. I can remember hoeing cotton. I can remember picking cotton. And so I worked right along with the adults in those fields. And they ruled their world with darkness. They responded to things with anger. They were very lost, deeply lost people. We had an overseer of the people that worked there, and he was very abusive, very much like a slave lord, I guess he could be called. And one day, I didn't go into the fields, and I don't know why. Usually everybody went into the fields to work, but for some reason one day, I was left home alone. And so because I was home alone, I climbed up into a cabinet because I was hungry. And I opened up the lard and pulled the sack of flour. And I would dip my finger in the lard and then dip my finger into the flour and suck that off my finger. I was hungry. The men got fed first, and then the women. And whatever was left over, the children got. So I was up in that cabinet when I heard a car. And then I heard the door open, and I pulled the cabinet door closed, and I was scared to death. But actually, it was a good thing because it was an aunt that came back. There were no telephones and things like that, and she just came. She just showed up. She had gotten out of the darkness. She had gone to a neighboring state, and she was working. She was a single woman. And when she opened the cabinet door, I prepared myself to be hit. I remember just cringing and waiting. And she started talking softly to me. And she saw me. She saw the bruises. She saw the burn marks. She saw the filth. And she changed my life. So she took me. She just left with me. I had never been in a car. I had never been in the places we drove to. She took me home and bathed me. Took about 2 baths to get me clean. But she saw. And so she was the one who was instrumental in getting me adopted. So it wasn't long. I went and stayed with her mama. And it wasn't long until one day a man came up and drove up, and I was introduced to him, and he looked me over, and he was the man who would ultimately become my father. He wanted a child because his wife couldn't have children. And he thought that because she couldn't have children, that was why she was so angry all the time. And that was why she drank so much. So he thought, well, if she just had a child, maybe she would stop all that. But I wasn't their solution. In fact, I became a target for her. And what happened next was her anger came out toward me so much of my life. I could never do anything right. I got lots of beatings. I got lots of name calling. And so I went into my life with a label of poor white trash. That's all you're ever going to be. Every mistake I made, and as a child, you have to learn. I would be told that that was my destiny because that was all it was. I took that into my life, my adult life. I married the first man that came along. I mean, a way out, I was pretty happy to go there. So it wasn't something that I entered into under the unction of the Lord. It was just a way out of this situation of hurt and pain. And of course, our changes from that perspective never really give us freedom. So in my early 30s, I was suicidal. By then, that marriage had failed. I was a single mom. I had absolutely no idea how I was going to take care of these kiddos. And I was hopeless. And
Mom,
okay, go ahead.
before you go there, I just want to
Yes.
I just want to summarize what you just said about the stolen past. And I know that we're coming up on something, but I just want to, for our listeners, I
Yes.
want to just share with them. So here you were growing up in Louisiana,
Yes.
cotton fields, and a family in a home that were just itinerant farmers, abused in
Abused.
every way possible.
Yes.
This aunt shows up out of nowhere,
Yes.
like you had never seen before, calls your name, just takes you.
Yeah.
And but as you were growing up, you said something earlier before we started recording. You said these were the days where you know there was a lot of culture involved, and so
A lot.
single women weren't raising babies on their own back then.
No.
So she did what she thought was best for you by getting you and putting you up for adoption, because she was going to have you live with her mother, but she was kind of older already.
Yes, she was.
And so you were adopted into this family, and that's what you were talking about with this man that came and was hoping, because of his wife's broken past
Right.
in the drinking, he thought that you would be the solution. Mom, there's so many people right now that they think a child or that thing is going to be the solution that's going to fix them.
Right.
They're not looking to Jesus. They're looking to everything else in the world. And you became that solution for him. And then it wasn't.
That's
And
right.
this woman that carried this rage is in
It
your
was
book.
a
You wrote a
rage.
book called Diamond in the Darkness,
Right.
and you talk about this woman that it was either it was unleashed on you or it was unleashed on him.
Yes, and my father. Yeah, we took turns, but she always had someone that she could release her rage on.
So you left a home where you were abused as a kid and walked into another home supposedly to be a solution for you to be healed and set free and
Yes.
delivered, but you became the target of someone else's violence, someone else's anger, someone else's brokenness.
Exactly.
And then you grew out of that and then got married, and that's where you're at right now.
Yes.
So you started, like, you went from, as your childhood was just a series of brokenness.
Yes, all the way. And when I married, my thought was, "Oh, I'm going to be so happy now. Just you watch and see." And of course, nobody else can fix the brokenness that's within you. And that man had a lot of brokenness in him as well. And so that wasn't a solution for me.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take a break,
Okay.
and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the intervention,
Okay.
because that is where, we need to talk
Yeah.
about the intervention, because that's what people need to hear right now. So,
Okay.
all right, stick with me and we'll be back with Peggy Corvin. Watch this.
We found the trail. That's why we're here. You don't have to take the vertical climb. We've done it already. Follow us. Follow us.
Hey friends, my name's Captain John Arroyo, retired. I'm a survivor of the active shooter event April 2nd of 2014 on Fort Hood Military Base, also known as Fort Cavazos. Friends, I've went through some stuff, but through this curriculum that I'm sharing with you, finding resilience in today's world, being intentional about self-care, I've outlined 8 self-care steps that will help you live a resilient life. Friends, you need to have this curriculum. It is a great opportunity for you to start discussion in your units, in your firehouse, with the police officers, with students, and talking about living a resilient life. And friends, I want to say, follow these steps, follow me, and I will guide you to leading a resilient life. Find our curriculum. It's going to help you and everyone around you live a resilient life. Follow me.
We found the trail. That's why we're here. You don't have to take the vertical climb. We've done it already. Follow us. Follow us.
Well, welcome back. All right, we just came back out of a commercial break, and we're back with Peggy Corvin, and she is going to tell us now about the intervention. Mom,
Yeah.
your life story is so compelling. And I want to say this to you. Mom, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Nobody, and that's what keeps me in this ministry is I don't want to leave not one that's going through that or has gone through it and hasn't been able to heal yet, because I know it can be healed.
Yeah. Well, okay. So before we get an intervention, talk about how the Lord had you and your mom. What happened for her in her final days?
Oh, in the final days, yeah, the end of the story. I'll tell the end of the story first, I guess, because as it happened, once I met the Lord and started walking with him, it was a process, a long process. And my mom hadn't changed at all through those years, but I had stepped away from her. I really just stopped seeing her. I moved far away. I moved to Texas so that I wouldn't be around her, because it was still very painful to be around her. But after I got to know the Lord and knew his love and knew that he loved me unconditionally, he sent me back to her. And I want to tell you, John, I didn't want to go. I did not want to go. I was like, no, I can't go back into that. And he was insistent. He compelled me to go. And it was the greatest thing I've ever learned, because he sent me back with the ability to set a boundary so that I didn't have to let her hurt me anymore. I learned how to do that. I didn't have that skill before I knew him. So when I could set boundaries, the amazing thing is I could relax around her and just love her and do loving things to express that love. And she began to relax around me. It was the first time in my life I had ever seen her where she would just sit and talk with me. And when that happened, I got to hear her story. And do you know that she was abused for the first 18 years of her life? She was sold into marriage. And this is Louisiana. This isn't some third world country. But she was basically sold into marriage when she was 16 because her family couldn't afford her anymore. And my mom couldn't go to school because they couldn't buy shoes for her. And because they couldn't buy shoes for her, the school wouldn't let her come. And so my mama had every reason to be angry. I mean, when you think about that you could be just sold, that you could say, no, you can't have education because we're poor. And so she was angry. And one day, her anger rose up and she walked out of it. She literally walked, I think it was about 50 miles to the closest big town. And she got a job washing dishes in a restaurant. And she began to learn things and grow. And she developed a job that she did very, very well. She could do that and hold it together. But then when she came home, she released all the anger from all the hurt that was still boiling inside of her. And so when God sent me back to her and I could just love her, I got to hear that story. And in hearing that story, I watched as he began to heal it. See, if we keep it stuck down in the dark, we never get over it. But if we start telling it, if we find our voice, and that's a big emphasis that I have in Freedom Ministry, is helping people find their voice and be able to use it. And so as she told me her story and saw the compassion and the love that I had because God was in me, then she began to want more of him. And so, John, it was a miraculous transformation. We had the last 5 years of her life in sweet relationship. And right before she died, she wrote me a letter. And on the day that she had a major stroke that ended her life, I got that letter. And the letter said, "Don't worry about me. I've given my life to the Lord, and he's got me." And that was one of the greatest gifts God ever gave me. Because, see, I saw the fruit of his work in a situation that looked hopeless, a situation that had lasted so long, and had hurt so many people. But he still wants to redeem. He still wants to transform us. So I flew back, and I was by her bedside for those last days. I would just anoint her with oil and just stroke her lovingly. And she went into the arms of Jesus. You just can't imagine the power that he really has until you walk through that.
And it's his will that none shall perish.
It's his will
and
that none shall.
It's our scars.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus has 2 scars, actually
Yes.
4, 2 on his feet and 2 in his wrist. And he still runs back to the people that put him on the cross.
Absolutely.
And he uses us to go back to the people
Yep.
that put the nails in our hands
Absolutely.
and the scars in our wounds, and that's the freedom that your mom, the Lord allowed you to walk your mom through freedom before you probably even knew freedom was a word.
I didn't even know how to put it in
but
words.
it was through the love, through his love. You just you loved her into freedom.
Yes.
And it's sad to see that 16 years of her life set the other, I think you've said this before, 16 years sent the other 70 on fire.
That's exactly right. And John, that's why I'm so passionate about Freedom Ministry. It broke my heart when I realized that. I was like, oh God, if she had just been able to come to you early on, if she had just known, then all of this would have been so different, so different. And so when I hear people saying things about themselves, when I see the defenses people have in place to keep other people from them, when I can tell that they're walking in darkness still, man, the warrior in me rises up.
Okay,
and
here's what I
want
want you to
after
do.
it.
Here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at this camera right here,
Okay.
and I want you to talk to your mom.
Oh no.
There's other ladies and men on the other side
Yes.
that are carrying that the first 16 years of their life
Absolutely.
is setting the other follow-on years on fire. And if you could have talked to your mom at 25 years old, if you could have talked to her at 30 years old, if you could have talked to her at 35 years old, to stop that so that they can be healed and they can heal their family. So talk to those who are on the other side of that camera like you would of your mom if you had that opportunity.
Yes. And that's a really good point, John, is, I didn't have the tools to love my mother in spite of her behavior. One of the things I am passionate about is helping people be able to love unconditionally people whose behavior is intolerable. And that's what God sent me back to do with her. And Mom, I wish I had been able to tell you sooner. I wish when that little 5-year-old girl came into your life, she had been able to say, hey, it's going to be okay. God's got this. And there's a better way to live. But I didn't have that tool. And so, but I am thankful. The one thing I would say to my mom, because she was so driven in the world to be somebody, she gave me a lot of skills. She made me speak without a heavy Southern accent. She taught me, Mom, you taught me to dress like a lady and to conduct myself the way I should, maybe for the wrong motivations, but God still used it. And you had a huge, huge value for education. And Mom, I just got my doctorate, and that was for you. And one thing I'll say too is after my mom died, I got my grandmother's Bible. My mom had my grandmother's Bible, and my grandmother prayed for my mom, just like your grandmama prayed for you.
There's so many people right now that are on the other side of that camera.
Yes.
That are carrying the things that your mother carried.
Absolutely.
or in the situations right now. Maybe their husbands are trying to figure out ways to bring freedom into their life, and maybe the husbands are doing it in the wrong way. Maybe they're looking for a child to bring into the life, or they're just trying to look for something that would bring peace into the home or bring or to help fill that. What would you say to that family right now that there's brokenness and they don't know how to heal it? They don't know how to deal with it. And so they're grabbing on and they're trying, like the husband, like your dad that tried to grab on and say, a child will heal this.
Yes.
What do you want to say to that family? What do they grab onto?
Yeah, there's only one source for freedom. and his name is Jesus. And so I would encourage people, yes, churches are wonderful, and I love my church, but churches in and of itself aren't the answer. Only Jesus is. And so it's about finding a relationship with him. I love that I went through a church that taught me how to read the Bible and taught me to read the Bible. But you have to be willing. Sometimes a freedom coach, I've worked with couples. I work with a man and then I work with a woman, and then we come back together and work together because the strongholds have to be broken on both sides. Freedom coaches, freedom classes, freedom, true people who are set free that have a passion about setting other people free. Find those people. I had to find the people that God wanted me to find. And he put an army of women along my path through my journey, absolutely an army. And so if you're free and you're hearing this today, get stirred for using your story for his glory and helping other people get free. Because it's never just for us. It's always for kingdom work. It always, always, always is it. But there is a way, and his name is Jesus, and he'll help heal every single hurt, and he'll restore your soul.
Awesome. That is a perfect segue into the intervention. And I know that we've already kind of bounced around, but there were some things that we had to address. We know that you've been healed, but there was a point in your life when you were suicidal.
Yes.
And you had kids already, right?
Right.
You had children. Like
I did have
you would
children.
think, who would be suicidal with children? Like
Right.
you would think that they would be the purpose. But when you're carrying wounds in your soul that you haven't been healed, again, I think we've figured out that children are not the answer. They're not the healer.
They're not the healer.
They're not the
That's
healer.
Exactly
So
right.
talk about that moment when, I think the way you put it is, the first freedom minister stepped into your life.
Yes, that's what I
And-
call him. I don't think anybody else calls him freedom minister, but I do because thank God he was really good at it. But so I had kiddos. I was divorced. And so once again, all right, this is my third family at this point. My first family didn't love me. They didn't take care of me. There was nothing good there. My second family, I had hope that I would be happy there, and I wasn't. And the darkness deepened. So I came from darkness, and I was covered up by even more darkness. And then when I married, I had hope. I just knew I'd be happy and that it was going to be good now. But I didn't have God inside, and neither did he. And I didn't know how to heal my wounds, and neither did he. And so our relationship got very dysfunctional and very dark. And so, John, even though I had kiddos, actually because I had kiddos, I believed that I was completely unlovable, that there was nothing about me that had any worth or any value. I don't know how, it's hard to put it into words when we try to think of that rationally, but it's a spiritual thing. It is something that takes people over. And I believe if there are people listening today that are considering suicide, I just want to say you're being deceived. Your life has value. And you may not see it right now, but there is great value in life. God is life. He creates life. He created you in his image on purpose, for a purpose. And don't let darkness and the enemy rob you of the greatest thing in the world. But for me, I was to that point. There was complete darkness in my life. And I felt like my kiddos would be way better being raised by somebody other than me. And that is what the end of the road that has no hope left in it looks like. So I got my kids to a friend's house. I planned out my suicide. I went into a completely dark room to complete the plan. And then something rose up inside of me, and there was a flash of anger. And I said, God, if you are real, then explain to me, why in the world did you ever let me be born? And what happened next was a blinding light encounter. And oh, I wish I do write. And even as a writer, I've never been able to find the exact words to explain what it was like. But that room was filled with a glow and a sparkling light that I've never seen before or since. And I felt the warmth that started at the top of my head and spread through my body. I encountered him and his spirit. It was an encounter that just enmeshed me in it. I was in it, and yet I could see it, and that's hard to explain. But he began to speak to me, and he began to say, I'm right here. I love you. I'm never going to leave you. I love you. He kept saying that. And then he gave me a vision of me being in his hand. And I was at the bottom of a very dark pit. And in his hand, as he began to move me up out of the pit, I saw scenes from my life, all the dark things that had happened. And in every scene, I could see he had been there. Every scene he knew about, and he reminded me of, I know. And he was telling me, I know. I was there. I saw ways that he kept me alive when I was still in the crib. The intent was that I would have ended my life, that my life would have been ended at that point, but he interrupted it. And so he brings me up out of this pit, telling me how much he loves me, telling me he knows, telling me he understands. And he set me on a rock, and the rock had light in it. And I just was there with him for so long. I can't tell you if it was a minute or 10 hours. It seemed like eternity. But I knew that I had encountered love. It was a feeling that I had that I'd never had, but there was something in my soul that had longed for it forever. And when it came in, I knew what it was. The Bible actually tells us he put eternity in the hearts of man. And that's the part he touched and brought to life for me. And so I knew that everything was different. I knew that I was different. I knew that there was life inside me again where I had never felt life. And the interesting thing is that room that had been totally dark before, as long as I lived in that house, there was always a glow in that room. You could not make that room get completely dark. It was an amazing thing. It was a real encounter, and I knew the Lord. So that was the intervention that he made to save my life and to keep me here on earth. And then he began to walk with me after that.
So and that's, I think, perfect. I love the way he put that, because it wasn't everything was just healed in that moment. It's almost like you go to an emergency room and they deal with the acute things, and then they say, okay, now follow up with your primary care manager.
That's a great analogy.
Right. And then you're not dying today. I'm just telling you, you're not dying today. You're okay.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go through. So
you need a little more work.
So he saved you.
Yes.
Restored you in that moment, let you know that he was there, always been there, showed you that he was always been there.
Yes.
And then said, okay, now we're taking a journey.
Yeah.
Now we're on a journey to start the process of healing. And that's what freedom is, right? I mean, that is it.
Yep.
You're working through the process
of
having them have that encounter.
Yes. They have
it's all different, right? It's all different. Not everyone gets the blinding light, but it's still him showing up and him showing them that he's been there all along in those places that they thought no one was there. all those offenses, all those times, the lies, the labels, the limitations, the abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse. And he was there all along. He's not the author of it. Yeah. And so you help them understand all that and you walk them through the process. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's beautiful. Okay, we're going to conclude on one final thought.
Okay.
So at the end, you walk through this process.
Right.
And then he begins to bring redemption in your life.
100%.
By bringing a man.
Oh, yes. He did. Now, I wasn't looking for a man, by the way. I want to say that up front. I met this man. I played tennis, and I met him. And, you know, I wasn't interested in dating or anything like that. What God was doing in my life was exciting and full, and everything was restored.
You were in love with him.
Yes, I was so in love with him. Yeah. There wasn't really room. So I met this man, and so there was a fellowship after the tennis, and I saw him, and I talked with him briefly, and then as I was leaving, I was walking to my car under the big Texas sky. I remember the stars were big and bright, but, you know, especially that night. And as I got to my car, he said, if you let me, I'm going to show you how to love that man. And I was like, what? No. And I got in my car. I mean, that was my response, and left. And the next week he called and asked me if I wanted to go out. And I told him no. And I said, no, thank you though, but I'm busy and no. And then, I mean, this is one of those cases where God was trying to get my attention. Okay. So then a friend of mine says, she was having a to-do. And anyway, long story made short, I ended up inviting him to satisfy what my friend was asking for. She wanted somebody to double date with. And so I was like, I don't date. So I called him and we went, and wow, it was a gift from God. This man, Stan Corvin, was a Texas man. I mean, a real Texan and a real man. He had been raised in Texas by an oil man grandfather who raised him because his dad was a fighter pilot in the service and was gone a lot. And so he grew up in the military and in the rough ways of men who know what it means to be in hard times and how to act like a man in that. And he knew the Lord. And so it really began this great journey of sharing the Lord with each other. He asked me to marry him after we dated for a year, and we were married for over 30 years. And I just want to tell you, it is truly the most miraculous thing to be in a marriage of three, where Jesus is enthroned in your hearts and in your lives. And then that way, you can truly love each other unconditionally and stay in a commitment. I'm not saying we agreed on everything. After all, I'd been a single mom. I'd been running my life. I was a businesswoman, had started and run a business. And so we had to learn how to be in relationship with each other. But God was the one who took us through it all. We prayed together every morning, out loud for each other. We had a covenant agreement over our marriage. We had the non-negotiables, and we had the things that we were willing to do. And we had a way to handle disputes. And so we knew that we could take a time out and think about things. We never raised our voice. We were always kind and loving. And so those were just some of the things that God had us put in place as he built this marriage. And we started a business together. We had a publishing company, as you know, Southwestern Legacy Press. And that is truly a legacy of what God can do in your lives when you just yield to him, just like you have done. He builds things that bless others and goes out in the world to bring him glory. And we never published stories that didn't glorify God, and we never would and never will. But, at the end of his life, he was a two-time, I'm not saying that right. He was a combat helicopter pilot in Vietnam, and he served 2 tours of duty. So when he wasn't in combat, they were spraying Agent Orange. And so he would often come back because of the rotor blades and everything soaked. He would be soaked in Agent Orange for hours. So in his latter years, he began to have some of the symptoms that came out of that Agent Orange era. So we spent some time with him in hospitals, and we just made it a ministry field. I cannot tell you the number of people that he ministered to and I ministered to in the waiting rooms and the other hospital rooms. And God will just use whatever it is you have to go through to bring him glory if we just open up to him. But at the very end, he was in hospice, and so we called family. And so the kiddos from Tennessee had come, and all the grandkids and everybody was there. They were about to leave, and I said, "Hey, honey, is there any one last thing you want to say to these kiddos before they head back?"
Hey, hon, what do you want to say to the kids?
Yeah. And so he, this man that had known war, this man that had done great things, this man that had been truly a man after God's own heart. He turned every single person individually, one by one. And he said from the very depth of his heart, "I love you." And he said it in such a way that there was no doubt. And so when I think of legacy, that's his legacy. Yes, he left a lot of books for a lot of people, but that's his legacy. He loved the people that God had put in his life with the love that God had put in his heart.
What a redemption story.
What a redemption story.
What a redemption story that the Lord would give you.
Yes, 100%. For everyone. It's not too late. It's never too late.
So if people want to find out more about you, they can look up your book. They can get the full story.
Yes.
Through Diamond in the Darkness.
Yes.
They can look up your name. It's on Amazon or where books are sold. They can look up Peggy Corvin, and they can look up Diamond in the Darkness, and there's an additional title to that. But as we conclude, I would love for you to just look at that camera and to talk to the people on the other side, whatever's on your heart, because Peggy Corvin at 5 years old wasn't a Corvin back then, but Peggy is a 5-year-old girl's on the other side. Her mama's on the other side.
Yep.
The woman that was married that thought that she was beyond the pain is still on the other side.
Yes.
The woman that just lost her husband after 30 years is on the other side of that camera, and she thought she was over it too.
Yeah.
Or he. Just talk to him.
Okay. I think the one thing in all of those situations is no matter where you are, God is there. When I read the scripture for the first time and Jesus said, "I will never leave you or forsake you," I didn't understand it until he started freedom work with me. That never meant he never had. He had been there through it all. And I have sat with countless people kneecap to kneecap, and every single time they go back into the darkness to let him heal, he shows them how he was there, and he shows them what the truth was, that he loved them. He didn't want things to have happened the way they did, but he's there, and he will redeem it. He will restore it. He will give you a life that you can't even imagine if you just simply call out to him. Call on his name, and he will be right there. There's so much more to life than you can imagine. I want to encourage you today. John has a word that I never pronounce correctly, but it's shazak, and it means be strong and courageous. And if you are in any of those situations like I went through, I know how much courage it takes to go back and look at the painful things. It's worth it. It's worth it. Have the courage to do it because he's your Savior. He saved you, and he's got a great purpose for you. And he loves you more than you can even imagine.
Mom, thank you for being on this show today. Thank you for gracing us with your presence and telling your story.
Honor.
I think that this is probably one of the first times that you've done it in this format,
Yes,
but
it is.
it's really just the beginning, because the Lord has provided for you and I a really beautiful studio, and he in it with excellence for us to be able to use to reach people all over the world, because it's not just in the United States.
Yes, that's true.
People need freedom. Well, let me correct that. People need Jesus
Yes, they do.
for him to bring freedom
Yes,
all over the world.
100%.
And so this was beautiful. Thank you for being on. And I hope
Thank
that
you. Honor of being here.
whenever you want to talk, you come back on, and the rest of the team, I'm sure that they're going to have plans already.
All right.
They're probably already writing them down right now.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for that.
all right. Well, I don't even know what to say. The words escape me. This was so emotional. I think everybody has taken away so much, and it's really just the beginning, because freedom is a process. One, you let the light come in and bring light to those dark places. And then, as she said, those dark places can never go back dark again. There will always be that glimmer of light. Once Jesus reflects himself in a place, it's like the shroud that is just imprinted. His light will be imprinted in those dark places. Long as you invite him in and you're willing to do the work. Freedom is work. It is a process. And so just be willing to start. That's the best thing I could tell you. Just be willing to start. All right. Well, Peggy will be back with us sometime soon, or you'll see her on her own show and with her curriculum. But make sure you go get Diamond in the Darkness. It's on audio version as well, everywhere books are sold, and you can hear it. And it's not a story of, let me just tell you how brokenness came in my life. It's about how it's a book on hope. It's a story of hope on how the Lord can bring you from some of the darkest places into his loving light. Until I see you again, I'm John Arroyo. I'll talk to you soon.